Hello and welcome back, everybody. My name is Hannah.
And I'm Rachel.
And this is the You Talking to Me podcast. Today we will be discussing, is this the first of the month? It is? Okay. Rachel, I'm giving you a drum roll. What's our theme?
We are doing movies and shows based on books. So this is something I've been very excited for just because it's, I don't know, a more interesting theme in my opinion because there's a lot more to discuss in terms of what the differences are, what we like comparatively. But the little twist we're doing is for most of the month, so there are going to be 5 podcasts this month plus our live stream, is that for the first 4 weeks, only one of us are going to read the book. And then we're both going to watch the movie so that we can kind of judge, is it a good movie without knowing what the book is? Or is it a good adaptation / bad adaptation compared to the book? And then the last week, we're both going to watch and read the story. And then we have a fun twist for our live stream that we will be talking about on our Instagram. So go follow us there at youtalkingtome.podcast. So, all right, Hannah, what's the first book / movie we're discussing today?
The first one we're discussing is the Da Vinci Code. And just so everyone knows already, I'm the one who has read the book. Rachel has not. I'm going to give a recap. She was just making a pretty aggressive, no, I did not read that book face if you weren't watching, which you should be because now we're in video. Okay, The Da Vinci Code is a movie based on the book with the same name. The movie starts with the murder of a man who works in the Louvre by a man dressed in a cloak. We find out the murdered man is Jacques Saunière, and the man who murders him is named Silas. Silas is a member of Opus Dei, a religious community that wants to get rid of the proof of a holy grail. Saunière turns out to be the Grand Master of a group of people called the Knights Templar. Saunière left a message when he was dying to contact Robert Langdon, who is a religious symbol professor for Harvard. Saunière's granddaughter, Sophie, comes to the murder scene and tells Professor Langdon that he is being thought of as a witness, but she will help him escape the cops if he will help her try to figure out the message her grandfather left. Through many twists and turns of a storyline, we find out that Sophie is actually a blood relative of Jesus, and that the Holy Grail everyone has been searching for is a human, not a cup, which just so happens to be in the basement of the Louvre. That is our recap, everybody.
It's a very good recap of this 2.5-hour movie, and also a very pared back versions that we have lots to talk about. I need to know first, what did you think of the movie? Did you like it or did you dislike it? That's what I want to know.
I did like the movie. But I will say right off the bat that I wrote in my notes, I think I would be confused if I hadn't read the book.
Really?
Yeah. So I want to know what you thought of it.
I really liked the movie. I thought that they did a really good job at keeping me engaged the entire time. I mean, it's 2.5 hours, and y'all know I'm not about to be sitting for 2.5 hours watching a movie. But they did a really good job keeping me engaged. And I wasn't very confused. I was a little confused trying to figure out how I was going to write notes for some of these parts, but watching the film, it all made sense to me. So.
Okay, cool. And I wasn't confused watching it. I just thought I maybe would have been. But who knows? I can't ever know that because I can't unread the book. The book was more confusing than the movie. Just because it's a very complex storyline, like I said, and I told Rachel off camera before we started this that this was the first book I remember reading where I had to look up words because there are some bigger vocabulary words in here, and then also there's what I presume to be French in the book. I think it's French. I could be wrong. And so I don't speak French, and I was like, what in the heck is being said? Whereas when you're watching it, they had subtitles. At least I watched with subtitles, so they came up in English for me.
I want to talk about real quick. First, did you like the book though when you read it?
Yes, I would read the book again. In fact, I might read it again.
I know a lot of people, they love the Da Vinci Code series. They love the movies, the books, everything about it. And I know a lot of people have strong feelings where they don't like it. But I have never read this book because it's over 400 pages, and that was not something I would read until recently, just because that's a lot of work. That's a lot of arm strength that I definitely still don't have to hold a book that big. But it just, I mean, even just thinking about it, that wasn't even a movie that I wanted to watch. Just basing it off of the name, the Da Vinci Code, that just did not seem like anything I cared about. So I'm shocked that I liked it, mostly because it's not a rom com or a young adult TV show or something that would play on Disney Channel. So this definitely took me out of my comfort zone, but it was very enjoyable. Also, it has Tom Hanks, so I'll watch pretty much anything he's in.
Yeah, I liked it. It's funny because it was actually my mom's book and she got it and she never read it. And then one day I was just trying to find something to read on our bookshelves and I found it and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna try it. And I liked it. And there definitely are some differences that I remember. There's probably more that I don't remember, even between the book and the movie, but there are some that I noticed. Like, for example, in the movie, Professor Langdon falls down in a well. They talk about it, and maybe they talked about it in the book, but I swear I do not remember that being a thing, that he fell down in a well. Maybe I blacked that out, but I really don't remember him falling down a well.
Well, and I feel like it must be in the book because it's such a tiny part of this movie. Like they set it up like it's going to be this big thing because he's afraid of being in the elevator because it's such a small space at the beginning of the film instead of like he wanted to take the stairs. And then they were shocked that he would ride in that plane for so long because it was kind of a small plane, I think, or he was like in a tight quarters of it. And then they bring up the well, and it was like never talked about again because he did not care about going into that dark basement at the end of the film in that church. I was like, bro, if you're gonna set up this character trait, it's gotta be like consistent at least. So I wonder if it was in the book too somewhere and was just like briefly talked about because it was not a huge part of the film enough for it wasn't even like because I was expecting like if it had played out with the same scenes and not adding another scene or anything that's in the movie, I would suspect that he would like be too scared to go because they had to like open something in the floor and then go down there. Shouldn't he be terrified to go down there because a well is like small opening and dark and long and that should and there was I don't know, it was stupid. I mean, okay, what does come out of that is that he said that he prayed while he was down there to like be saved. So that came to be because Sophie was like questioning whether or not she could be the bloodline of Jesus and not really be religious and stuff like that. Like, should she try to destroy the religion or should she try to like live out the religion and stuff like that? So that was like what came out of it. But it just didn't hit the way that I think they wanted it to.
Maybe they do mention it in the book, but it was just like such a minuscule little thing that I wasn't paying attention to it. I don't know. I could be wrong.
So something that I really thought worked or the way they did it, I think worked at the beginning of the film, you know, where he like reads, I mean, Robert Langdon, Tom Hanks, my boy Tom Hanks. So they have the dead grandpa, and he has like the saying on the floor or whatever. And they like solve what that means because it's like those things where all the letters are scrambled and it leads them to like another painting or something and they have to like solve something there and then they go to another painting and another painting until they like find this like symbol that shows him that he's like in the fleur-de-lis, like the Templar thing. So they go really fast through all of this stuff, and if they gave you enough time to sit and think about it, you'd be like, this is going so quick. Like, how does he know it's like supposed to be a word scramble? How do they know exactly what painting to go to? Oh, he knows what the fleur-de-lis is. Like, how? That's so stupid. Like, you'd be thinking like, this is all way too convenient for you for a film. But because they're keeping you up, just keep going, and because they have that ticking clock of like not getting caught by the police and like having to escape them and like get out of there, the ticking time bomb basically that is this film, plus how quick they move through that section, doesn't give you enough time to be like, that was really stupid while you're watching it. Sure, I can think about it now, like reviewing it and being like, yeah, that was pretty convenient, but it doesn't change how I felt while I was watching it. So I don't even really care that they did it like that or anything, because I didn't read the book where I'm sure there was more time spent on things or more time like figuring it out. In the film, I think they did it perfectly to where, like I said, they give you no time to question how they know all this stuff.
I will say in the book, there's obviously more detail and time spent. This, I don't know, what would you say? 5 minutes maybe they're trying to solve all these things in the museum, maybe less than
Wow,
that. And
a
in the
short
book,
time.
yeah, for reading is probably like 20, 30 pages. I don't know, it's a lot longer in the book versus in the movie, but I do think that they played it out well in the movie, and I don't feel like they left out anything that was important from the book. So that was good.
Were you like annoyed by how quick they were figuring this stuff out, or did you not really care?
I don't think I was thinking about it that much because I knew what was going to happen. So maybe if I didn't know what was going to happen, I would question and be like, how'd you figure that out so fast? Like that, you can't. Come on now. Like that's a little too fast. But I think because I knew that they figured it out, it just was like, yeah, they could figure it out that quickly. And obviously he's smart. He's, like I said, he's the religious symbol professor for Harvard. So he knows his symbols and stuff. And we learn throughout the film that Sophie's grandpa has trained her from a young age to solve puzzles. So they know how to solve puzzles.
Yeah, they both are like the two most perfect people to like be on this case. And they do set both of those up really well. I mean, it opens with Robert Langdon giving like a lecture, and then they have a little bit of like flashbacks and stuff for Sophie to like let you know why she's able to solve this stuff. So I thought that I didn't question the characters one bit on why they were so good at this or why they were perfect for this journey.
One thing before we jump into this, like, do you think that there's a possibility that this could be real? Like, not the exact storyline, but the Holy Grail storyline that it's a person versus this cup and that there's a living relative of Jesus.
I wouldn't be surprised if there was a living relative of Jesus. I feel like there's got to be some sort of like record somewhere that like maybe the Catholic Church is like hiding, or like the Jewish church would be hiding or something. I mean, the Jewish church doesn't believe that Jesus is like the son of God, but they do think that he was like a real person and everything. So I wondered if there's some religious entity, hopefully not an Opus Dei type of thing, that believes that Jesus had children and that they like kept having children, or maybe it like died off a long time ago because of disease or something, who knows. But I think that'd be really cool to find out. I also really loved the scene though where Lee Teabing is like explaining to us about Mary Magdalene and how in the Last Supper like she's there and all of that stuff. I thought that was super cool because I usually don't think scenes where you're just like explained things to or explained about work, but I was so fascinated like learning about that stuff that I was like invested. I was like, this could be the whole movie, just like talking about Mary Magdalene and the lineage and the symbols like meaning like a man and woman, and I just thought it was so cool.
I agree. I thought that they explained it so well, and I think that maybe there is some truth to it. Who knows? Like, I have no clue. But in the movie and the book, I think they do address the fact that they don't believe Jesus is the Son of God. Is a person. Um, that was like I don't think they touched on it as much in the movie, but in the book, I just remember them saying that he was like an average person, but he just did really good for people. And then people looked up to him, and that's why he was such a great person. And he didn't do the whole I resurrected thing that people say he did. People just embellished on the stories to make it the religion they wanted or something. But it's like that's the aspect of religion that I find interesting. Like, I want to learn all the background of all the different religions, because if it's the true stories, I find that interesting. But for me, it's like the whole Bible narrative I don't buy. But that's just me. I'm not saying people can't believe in God or Buddha or whoever, Allah, whoever you believe in, and you can't believe that story. I just don't believe the Bible personally.
Well, a really cool story. I wasn't at this church service, but my boyfriend told me about it. There's this really wonderful priest in Savannah that I don't actually like mind going to this Catholic church. Like, it doesn't feel unwelcoming at all. Like, I felt uncomfortable in a couple of Catholic churches just because I'm Lutheran and I can't go to communion. I can't like participate in some of the stuff. I don't know the the explicit ways that like they do their prayers and stuff, especially now during COVID, because they don't have like the pamphlets and books for everybody to read. So you kind of just have to know a lot of it. But this church is like wonderful. And he gave a sermon the other day about, like, I think it was a couple weeks ago, about Jesus like cured a couple of these women of like different things just by like touching them or whatever, or they touched his cloak and they were cured and stuff like that. And he wasn't talking so much about the fact that he like did these miracles. It was the fact that in those times, like, if women got sick or something like that, like, or certain diseases or certain people got sick, the doctors like wouldn't waste their time on those people, like, oh, women aren't worth saving, etc., things like that. And the fact that this like holy man, this guy that everyone's looking up to, would spend the time to care for the people that no one else cared for was like this incredible story. That's why a story like that is in the Bible, because I mean, he does cure a bunch of people and it's more interesting than some of these stories. But this kind of stuff was in there, and I don't even think the people that wrote it, the people that put those stories in, I don't think they really realized what they were saying. But then the priest goes like, so this man of God, like literally God's son, thought they were worthy enough. So why don't some of us believe that, gay people are worthy enough to like care for and stuff like he like explicitly was saying these things in a Catholic church, which I just respect him. He really is doing God's work. Like, I really do believe that he was called by God to do whatever, like spread these words.
I remember in the book they talk about how Da Vinci was gay. I don't remember to what extent, but I just remember them talking about that, and maybe some other artists who were gay. And then I think that in the book and in the movie, they made a good point to show that there was some motivation behind certain actions because of money. And they kind of showed how the money affects the church. And I don't know if that's true, but is the Opus Dei people, but I feel like they're Catholics. I could be wrong. Was that a complete separate thing? That's one thing that's confused me between the book and the movie. It seems like Catholicism, but they also call it Opus Dei. So I don't know. I could be wrong.
I think it's like a sect of it or something. I don't know. But they're like really crazy. Like, I'm sorry if this is a real religion or not, but they are actually a little crazy. Like, Silas literally like tortures himself in front of God or whatever, like whipping himself and like chaining himself. It was, honestly, I was worried that that was going to be a lot of the movie. And I was like, I'm going to have to close my eyes a lot because I cannot watch this. But it was just one big-ish scene near the beginning to kind of just like show you to what extent these people like devote their lives to this kind of culty group of people. So I don't know. I don't know if they're actually Catholic or if they're just like a sect of Catholicism or a sect of Christianity or whatever they decided they were, but they were aggressive and just wanted it so that they could have the power. Like they were power hungry and money hungry.
Very true. And yeah, the scene with Silas is intense. He puts this thing on his leg. I can't remember what it's called, but it has these little prongs in it, and he tightens it so they're just squeezing into his leg, and he's bleeding, and he's walking around with it on his leg because he's sinning. So he, like, that's how he shows his devotion to God, is by hurting himself. And then he goes and kills people. So, but I don't know.
Here's one criticism that I have about this Silas character. So they show you at the beginning who the murderer is, which I think was a very interesting move. And I wrote like, is this gonna be a good thing or is this gonna like be a bad thing, you know? Because knowing more as an audience member than the people in the movie is a very interesting tactic to take as like a director and writer, because you have to like pay it off at the end. But I really didn't think, sure, the movie wasn't who killed my grandfather. It was like, why and what does all of this mean and stuff like that. But it really didn't serve a purpose either way. Like, I thought it was going to be like this big moment because we knew who it was. Like, they were going to reveal it in a interesting way or something. But it was like not done very well. I don't know if it was just the movie adaptation of it or anything, but it's like then he dies like not in a very interesting way. Like I personally didn't care when he and the like head priest guy of Opus Dei died. I was like, "Oh, I guess that's good. They're dead." But it at that point, I felt like Silas was such a minor threat to them in this film at the point that he dies that I wasn't like, oh, thank God. Like, thank God he's out of the picture. I just didn't care about him anymore. So I don't know if they just waited too long or had too many scenes without him or what happened, but it was anticlimactic, like of them laying next to each other, you know, they failed God or something. It just didn't have that high climactic moment that I was expecting since we knew who it was at the beginning. I think if they had some sort of reveal, maybe in the middle or around that point when he dies, like he shows up and like tries to kill them as like another stake, that could have been interesting. But I was like, okay, cool, he's dead. Don't care.
Yeah, because when he dies, you feel like there's more of a threat from Lee than someone else because you figure out who Lee is. So at first, Professor Langdon and Sophie go to Lee's house because he is a man who's studied the Holy Grail. Like he's on the search, like he's devoted his life to find the Holy Grail. So they go to him to find more information, but then he turns on them because he finds out that they have the cryptex, and which is this little device that you have to rotate keys on, kind of like a bike lock, to spell out something. And then if you get it correct, you can open it and get this little vial out. If you don't do it correctly, it cracks the vial of vinegar or something. There's some liquid in there, and then it'll dissolve the paper that's inside. So the secret will forever be destroyed. And when he finds out that they have the cryptex, he like turns on them. You don't notice it immediately, but then you do, and you figure out that he's the man behind all this, really. And I have written down in my notes, Lee seems to get off when he sees the cryptex. Like he just seems like he like literally gets off on it. And I was like, ew, I don't like it.
I mean, he doesn't have a lover at that point, so he's gotta get off of something, I guess.
I guess. I also say that Lee is an asshat, so those are my notes on him. I didn't like him. What did you think about his character or that storyline? Did you see that coming? Did you not see that coming?
I didn't see it coming at all. I was shocked that he was the teacher or whatever. So his like right hand man, Remy, who like works at his library with him, basically is like his butler and personal assistant or something. He is also in on it at one point. We find out that he's also trying to like kill the two people who have the cryptex and whatnot for teabing Lee, which was a good twist. I was shocked by that. But I thought, then Remy takes Silas and is like, I don't need your help now solving this. Like, you're gonna go to one of the Opus Dei houses and you'll stay there until we need you again or something. Go into hiding till this all dies down. Then Remy brings something. I liked the way that they shot that originally because it kept the identity a secret until um later, he and Remy are like having a drink or whatever, and then Remy's like, don't worry, your identity's secret, we're in this together, and then you find out that the drink was poisoned and he dies, and obviously the teacher's going to be kept a secret if he's dead. So I did like that scene, and then you find out like it swoops up and you see that it's Lee, and you're like, I literally wrote it's teabing in my notes.
It does catch you by surprise, and I wonder if that's why Silas had to be revealed in the beginning, because otherwise there'd be too many secrets in this. That's just my thought on it. Maybe I'm wrong. I will say Silas scares me. Did he scare you? He just
He was
seems very.
so creepy looking. Like they did a good job like casting him and doing the makeup and everything. His eyes were like slightly always just like red underneath, like or purplish. And he just had this weird like gaunt look to him. It was terrifying. I was honestly thinking that this is gonna be a scary movie too. That was another thing that I was nervous about watching it.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's scary. One thing I want to note is that the director of this movie, who is Ron Howard, he's also the director of How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
No way.
Yeah.
Gosh,
Isn't that interesting?
what goes around comes around now. Like this podcast doing a couple circles.
True.
That's so funny because they're both so differently shot too. Like they don't look the same either. So it just shows like his depth as a director.
Yeah, very different movies. And obviously one's for a child crowd and one's not. In their search for the Holy Grail, they are trying to find out information. And in the book, they go to a library, and it's like a long scene about them trying to find the database and like this and that to get the information to go to that museum or wherever they end up at, where that sculpture is. And in the movie, they just do it on a cell phone. They have some random man's cell phone they use to go into a database to find information about something, which was an interesting play because in the movie, then it happened very quick. And in the book, that felt very drawn out.
Was it a boring part of the book or was it interesting at all?
I mean, I can't say it wasn't interesting at all. It was more descriptive. And I think that it served its purpose in the book, but I also see the point of just kind of using a quick scene in a movie to get past that point.
Well, and I think the reason, I mean, they touch on the fact while they're on the bus or whatever that they're going to Chelsea Library, but that it's a half hour away and they don't have time. So I thought that inclusion right there was a good way to keep the momentum alive, because if they had all of a sudden had all these big quick scenes and like high stakes moments and all of a sudden they're spending like an hour at the library, I think that would just like slow the movie down. And maybe, I don't know this as a fact or anything, but I wonder if maybe they included that into the original script that they went to the library, but someone was like, this is too slow, it doesn't make sense for them to take this time, and made them cut it. Because that sounds like something like if someone in my class were to have like adapted Da Vinci Code and included that scene, that they would have them cut it and just come up with a quicker way. Also, them searching on that like old phone just brought me back to, I went to a camp as a kid at the Salvation Army. There was a day camp, and one of the counselors there, she had one of those phones that like slid as well, but also like could be regular. And there's that internet button, and I just remember as a kid on my phones, like if I accidentally pressed it, pressing that end button just so fast to not connect to the internet. Thank God it was so slow. But I remember she let us like Google things before on there, and like they had an internet plan. And I used to think like, why, when those phones were around, would you have an internet plan? Because it's not like you can have any fun on the internet on those phones. But I think it was probably for like people who like their parents who were like business people. They probably ended up needing it. But I was always like, dang, that was so cool. We could Google things on your phone. I literally would Google the stupidest stuff that I didn't even need to know. It would be like grilled cheese, and I'd look at the pictures. Like, that's how stupid it would be. This is why I wasn't allowed to have internet.
I remember my first internet phone was a BlackBerry. No, it wasn't a BlackBerry. That's my second one, I think. But I just remember like having email or something on there. And it was just such a weird concept. I actually had internet on my TV, I think, before I had internet on a phone. Because I had one of the first smart TVs. So I remember going on Facebook on my TV and I was like, wow. And I'd like update my status, be like, is on her TV right now. And I'm like, wow, cool, 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 cool. A big thing that happened in the book that did not happen in the movie, which I very much appreciated, was at the end when Sophie is finding her place with her grandmother. She and Robert are kind of like walking together and they get kind of close and they hug, whatever. In the book, they kiss and they become like lovers, whereas in the movie, they don't. And in the book, that was one thing I did not like. I was like, there's no reason. There's literally no reason for them to become lovers right now.
Yeah, I guess I didn't really realize it. I was wondering like how cool that would be, like you're a religious symbols professor and then like you marry and like have a child with Jesus's relative or whatever. Like I just thought about like that in terms of like the logistics. But I was glad as well, especially now, like thinking back on it, I was glad, but also I didn't really notice it entirely watching the movie, that they didn't fall in love. Like they weren't really like flirting ever or anything. It's like good. Although I can see that you're trapped in this like high stakes situation, emotions are running wild, things like that, because you're like about to be killed multiple times. And when you experience those things with a certain person, you like have this level of connection that you can't have with another person that didn't go through that stuff. So I could understand why they would think that they would like be in love with each other or like want to kiss, even if that wasn't like right for them. But I am glad that they didn't have it in the film. But I can see how they would add that into the book.
I mean, I could see how they could have it, but it's just like, how many friggin' stories do we need where the guy and the girl fall in love with each other? It's like, that just doesn't have to happen. So I liked that that didn't happen in the movie. And the other difference I noticed was at the end of the movie, Langdon like goes to the Louvre and like figures out where Mary Magdalene's body is, but in the book, if I remember correctly, he goes back inside the Louvre. He doesn't in the movie. I could be wrong. I know he for sure obviously goes there, but in my brain, it's telling me that he went down to where it was. Whereas in the movie, they did show like her tomb or whatever it's called underground. They showed a flash of her or her resting place, but I think that in the book he went there.
I was very confused about where the body was when he was like walking that path. I recognized like glass and that was what the Louvre looked like, but I was at the end I was like, I don't know where this is. Honestly, I was like, okay, I guess. But I assumed it was in or near the Louvre, but it was pretty unclear to me.
Yeah, like there's this part in the book, it's at the end talking about that happening, and I'm pretty sure he's inside the Louvre for this, but it's like he says he was standing between or beneath the ancient rose line, surrounded by the work of masters. What better place for Sonier to keep watch? Now at last he sensed he understood the true meaning of the Grand Master's verse. Raising his eyes to heaven, he gazed upward through the glass to a glorious star-filled night. She rests at last beneath the starry skies. And then there's a bit more, but the fact that they say he looks up out of the glass means that he's inside the building in my mind.
I think that would have been a lot more, I would have understood maybe a lot more of where he was then, but I wonder if it was just the logistics of like getting him inside the Louvre at that point and they didn't want any more like sneaking past security to like get down there because it's all resolved and we're at like a stasis now. So I think they did it like in the safest slash like most public area that you could because they didn't want him to have to like break and enter again. This is me all speculating, though. I don't actually know what they were thinking when they made this.
Right, who knows what they were thinking. But I didn't not like it, but to me that was one of those times where I was like, I definitely would have been confused here if I hadn't read the book.
Mm-hmm.
There's a few, it's not like the whole thing I would be just dumbstruck and be like, excuse me, what just happened? But there were certain parts, like another part that was more played out in the book than the movie was the whole ritual scene for, okay, so Sonier is in the group of Knights Templar, and they have this thing where it's like a sexual ritual, but that's apparently something that happens in religions or something. I don't remember all the details, but when Sophie goes and finds that, like she's watching it happen, they're all in masks, they're dancing, and she's literally watching her grandpa bang a woman in the middle of everyone, and like is pretty descriptive for a while, and then she runs off. But in the movie, it was a very, very quick flash of what was happening, and then she ran away.
Yeah, that was, I think, all I needed, though, to understand it or to, like, get the gist of it. I didn't think that I needed more. Something that I thought was, like, played up and then was, like, such a lame resolution was the answer to the cryptics was literally apple. Like, why didn't they make it like a longer word and it could have been like gravity or something interesting? Because that's what they're trying to get at is they were at Sir Isaac Newton's grave or temple or whatever, and that's where they were getting a lot of the information. Also BS, like they would recognize the dust marks that Teabing was there. They like, she's like, look at the tracks, and then they like get low and you can like see that he was there because there's like cane and dragging marks in the freaking dust. Like they have tours that go through there. They didn't dust the floor, like they didn't sweep. That was BS to me, but whatever. That part I
That
actually
was
did
because
stop.
construction was happening.
Oh, okay. I was like,
In the
that part
book,
I
they
did stop and was like, this is stupid.
yeah, because in the book they go more into detail about how there was construction happening in the area, which
Well,
makes more sense for the dust.
that would make sense too. I still think it's dumb that she saw his footprints, regardless, because I thought that was dumb. Also, if there's construction going on, why are they still having like children go through there? There's like a very specific moment of like they're coming in to tour. Yeah, so they talk about how like there's like the lack of an orb or something. They're thinking maybe it's the moons, maybe it's the sun, maybe it's like something to do with the astrology, whatever. But at the end, when Teabing is like basically holding Sophie hostage, like at gunpoint, being like, solve this or else. Um, she's like, I don't know the answer. And Robert like convinces him like she doesn't know, but let me try. Like maybe I can figure it out. And he like does it and like has this weird moment where he's like can picture the statue or like the art piece that was in Sir Isaac Newton's temple and looking through it, and then he realizes it. We don't know that he actually figures it out because I feel like it would have made some noise, but that's okay. He figures it out, but his back is turned to Teabing, and he somehow had like opened it and grabbed the scroll, but then like turned around and he's like, I don't know the answer. And but then he like tosses the cryptics up and it like crashes down because Lee is like an old man and doesn't have good reflexes. But it like breaks and the liquid falls out and stuff like that, and he's like so mad. He's like, it's ruined forever. And they're like, well, I mean, you were probably not the right person to get it anyway, like you're an evil person, why should you have the map? And then as he's like being put in the police car, he's like, you solved it and took it out before you got it. Like he figured out that what Robert had done, which I didn't figure out. I didn't get it. But the answer was like the only missing orb was like his most famous one, which was like talking about gravity. And it was a freaking apple was the answer. And I go, this is bullcrap. That is the stupidest answer to a riddle ever, which makes it kind of fun that that's the answer because it's so freaking stupid and it's not like this, Latin word for something like it's nothing fancy. It's literally apple. A is for apple.
Right. And so I see both sides of that. Like I like that it's so simple because someone might think, "Oh, that's so simple. Like it can't be that. It has to be something big and complex." But also I was like, "Apple? Apple. Come on." Couldn't have been something better. But maybe if it was something more complex, it would be easier to guess just because it would be more complex. I don't know. That was interesting. I guess something we haven't said is that Saunier is not actually Sophie's grandpa. He takes her in and puts her into protection because her family, her mom, dad, and brother were killed in a car accident when she was little. And then she does have a living grandma, which I briefly mentioned, that is, of course, a blood relative of Jesus as well. And she has been in hiding because of that fact. And so Saunier's job was to protect Sophie and keep her safe for, I don't know, just growing up and everything. And that's what he did. And when they get to this church at the end, or chapel, or whatever it's called, a whole group of people comes out, and it's the Knights Templar, the people who are supposed to protect the bloodline. And then that's when Sophie meets her grandma. And it seems like, they're going to have this whole relationship, which will be great, but we don't know how that turns out.
But there are more movies like after this, right? And books. One quote that I really liked and I actually truly believe to be true, a good representation is, I think Sophie says it. She goes, "We are who we protect, who we stand up for." And I do think that that represents people a lot. What groups of people, who do you like, who do you stand up for? Who do you like live to protect? Like, what are you doing in this world? Like, who are you living for? I think is very, very interesting. So I really liked that quote a lot.
I guess I didn't even pay attention to that quote. But I do like it. I do like that. It seems like there's 3 or 4 movies and books in the series, but then somewhere else I see that there's 1, 2, 3, 7. So I don't know, but there's definitely more than one book. There's Angels and Demons, Da Vinci Code, The Lost Symbol, Inferno, and Origin.
I thought it was a good movie on its own. I don't think you need to read the book to understand it. If you want to, you can. Do you, Hannah, believe that this is a good adaptation?
Yes, I think there are certain things that I would probably change, but I feel like a lot of times if I read a book first and then watch a movie, I feel very disappointed with the movie. And certain things that were changed in this movie, I appreciated. Like I said about the whole kiss, like I was happy that that didn't play out the way it did in the book. I do think I would have changed the ending though. I get that, we come to whatever you said where at the end where we don't need something else to happen, but I think that if he had made his way back in the museum and did it the way the book was, I just think that that would be a better ending. But besides that, I think that yeah, it was a good adaptation of the book.
Were you disappointed at all with it?
I think that was the only part that I was really disappointed with is just I like the way the book ended so much that I was like, why didn't the movie end that exact same way?
No, for sure.
With that, Rachel will start to spew off our social medias.
All right, first and foremost, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Please start watching our videos. I think that it adds a whole nother layer to the podcast that not everyone has. And I think it's fun to see the voices or the faces behind the voices. So come subscribe, hit the notification bell. And if you're on your phone, turn on notifications for YouTube so that you will get notified there. I know that's where I watch most of my YouTube videos. So do that for us, pretty please. Comment below if you have any suggestions or if there was anything that you hated or liked compared to the book, or if you read the book and then watched the movie, or if you're like me and just watched the movie and enjoyed it and have zero intention on reading the book. Give us a like for the video as well. Follow us on Instagram at youtalkintome.podcast. We have some exclusive content on there, including live streams at the end of every month. Like I said, we also will be revealing the little twist that we're doing for our live stream this month on who's going to read the book. Are any of us going to read the book? What is it going to be about? Who knows? So go follow us there to figure out what that is early. Follow us on Twitter at youtalkintome11 because we're both number one. And email us any suggestions, thoughts, ideas, comments, questions, whatever you got at youtalkingtomepodcast@gmail.com.
Amazing. Thank you. With that, that is all that we have to say about this podcast. So my name is Hannah.
And I'm Rachel.
And this was the You Talking to Me podcast.
Sorry, I just wanted to say it.
It was way off on my end. I don't know if it was on your end.
It was on my end. I don't know. Every time that you say it, like the pause just makes me want to like jump in. I know I've done that before already, but I'm just like.
All right, everybody. Goodbye.
Bye.